Hi, everybody. My name is Eleanor Lean. I am Assistant Director of Civil Operations with the Legal Aid Board. And today I am going to talk to you about legal aid for wards and committees in discharge applications. So the Legal Aid Board has been providing legal services in Ireland since 1977 and was put on a statutory footing in 1995 under the Civil Legal Aid Act 1995. We provide legal advice and legal aid in civil and family law matters, and we also provide family mediation and vulnerable witness-related services. Following commencement of the Assisted Decision-Making Capacity Act in 2015, we now provide legal services in matters relating to assisted decision-making, including to wards and committees in discharge from wardship applications. So how can you access our services? So all legal services are commenced to the Legal Aid Board by way of an application for legal aid. And this is on an application for legal services form. These application forms are available from any law centre around the country. There's 34 law centres in Ireland. And the first link there, www.legalaidboard.ie, contact us, find a law centre, has a full list of all the law centres. You can also print off the application form from www.legalaidboard.ie. And an application form can also be obtained by contacting the head office of the Legal Aid Board on 066 947 1000 or by email info@legalaidboard.ie. The application form can be returned in person or by post or email to any law centre around the country. You can also apply for legal services online, and there is an online application form which is available on that link there. So www.legalaidboard.ie or services, legal aid services, apply for legal aid online. There is also a leaflet available on discharge from wardship and legal aid, which is available from the Wards of Court office, which has a section on the steps for applying online. Now, so what information is needed on an application form? So the first part of the application form is the personal information. So on an application form for legal services for discharge from wardship, the first part will relate to the personal information in respect of the ward. So to be clear, the committee can apply for legal aid on behalf of the ward. And in that circumstance, what you need to do is provide the name, address, date of birth, and the PPS number of the ward if it's available, but also provide the name and address and contact phone number for the committee. The next section then is on the details about why the person is applying for legal services. So in cases for discharge from wardship, you'll set out that you're looking to apply for legal services in relation to discharge from wardship. You might provide the name of the case officer in the Wards of Court office. And if you have it, you would provide the Wards of Court reference number for the case. So the next section of the application form is in relation to the statement of income and assets of the ward. If these details are available to you, you can insert them onto the application form, but if you don't know them, those details are not necessary in the case of a ward to be eligible for legal services. And we will get them in any event from the Wards of Court office later on when we're dealing with the case for the actual discharge application. We don't need any financial information in respect of the committee, as the committee are applying on behalf of the ward, so it's not the committee's finances that are going to be looked at. So then what documentation do we need with the application form? So we need a copy photo ID of the ward if it's available. So this would be a passport or a driver's license. If there isn't any photo identification for the ward, then don't worry about that. We'll come back to you again after the application has been received if we need anything else, but it is not necessary. But if you have it, do provide it. Similarly, the proof of address of the ward, so a copy bill or a bank statement, again, if they're available. If they're not, again, don't worry about it. If you have it, we would like to get a copy of the declaration order taking the ward into wardship, as this is one of the documents that will give us some of the information that we require in order to work on the case. So where can you apply for legal aid? So you can apply to any of the 34 law centres around the country. The Legal Aid Board has nominated 11 law centres out of those 34. who will process assisted decision-making applications. But if the application is made to a law centre that isn't one of those 11, the application can be processed at that law centre and a private solicitor legal aid certificate can be granted. Or that law centre can send it on to one of the law centres, one of the 11 law centres who are nominated by the board to process and deal with the applications. Where it can be dealt with in the law centre by a solicitor working in assisted decision-making cases, or it might be dealt with by a private solicitor legal aid certificate. So the next slide then has the information in relation to the law centres who are dealing with assisted decision-making cases. So for the Dublin area, you would be going to Ballymun Law Centre. For the Cork area, you would be looking at Cork South Law Centre. For Meath and Louth, you'd be looking at Dundalk Law Centre. For Kildare and Wicklow, you're looking at Wicklow Law Centre. For Donegal, Cavan, Leitrim and Monaghan, Letterkenny Law Centre. For Sligo, Longford, Roscommon, Offaly, Laois and Westmeath, Portlaoise Law Centre. For Waterford, Tipperary, Kilkenny, Wexford and Carlow, Waterford and Kilkenny Law Centres are processing applications. For Limerick and Kerry, Limerick Law Centre. For County Clare, Ennis, and for Mayo and Galway, Castlebar. Now, the board does have a private solicitor panel for assisted decision-making cases. There are panels all around the country of solicitors who are providing legal services under the Act, and in particular in relation to discharge from wardship cases. Some law centres will retain some of the cases in-house, and some of the cases will be sent to private practitioners, or a private practitioner legal aid certificate will be provided to you to obtain one of the solicitors on a list that we have. So also conflict cases will be referred to a private practitioners panel. So if there's some conflict, if the law centre has acted for one of the parties already, then they will generally send the case to a private solicitor on the panel rather than keeping it in-house. Urgent cases will also be referred where the law centre can't provide a priority or urgent service in the case. So assisted decision-making and financial eligibility. So normally a financial eligibility test applies to all legal aid applications. However, the financial eligibility test does not apply to a ward or a committee applying on behalf of a ward seeking legal services in respect of an application for discharge under Part 6 of the 2015 Act. A ward will qualify for legal advice or legal aid regardless of their disposable income or disposable capital. So contributions to legal aid. So normally when we receive an application and it's processed and we offer a consultation, an advice contribution must be paid by an applicant in receipt of legal advice, or a legal aid contribution will be paid where the applicant receives a legal aid certificate for legal representation in proceedings. However, for discharge from wardship cases, there's no advice or aid contribution payable by the ward or the committee on behalf of the ward in the discharge application. So there's no contribution upfront for dealing with those cases. So what happens next? So when you meet with a solicitor, the first thing that they will do is explain the steps in the discharge from wardship application. The solicitor will seek information on the background as to why the wardship application was made previously. The solicitor will seek information about the current needs of the ward and how the finances and care are currently managed. The solicitor will explain the possible outcomes of the discharge from wardship application and what will be involved in acting as a decision supporter after the discharge from wardship. At that stage, if you want to proceed, the solicitor will begin to take steps to start the court process. And what they'll do there is they'll contact the case officer to get some information. They'll gather documentation and information and prepare papers to lodge with the court office to start the process. At that stage, once they've started the court process with the court's office, the court's medical visitor will meet with the ward to carry out a functional capacity assessment. So this is to see what level of decision support the medical visitor believes is required for the ward in the different areas. A schedule of assets is completed by the ward's court office, and once those two documents are available, they're sent to the solicitor. The court process can take some time, but your solicitor will keep you updated as matters progress and answer any questions that you have on the process as you go along. So costs. So I suppose the question that is is one of the questions that everybody wants to know the answer to is, will there be costs for this? So the new Assisted Decision Making Act does provide for recovery of costs from award in some cases. However, regulations have to be made to deal with the issue of costs, and these regulations have not been made to date. And without these regulations, the Legal Aid Board cannot recover costs. So any ward or committee who has already had legal services or is receiving legal services will not be required to pay costs so long as there are no regulations in place. So if you require any further information about the services available from the Legal Aid Board, there is a specific section on our website, Assisted Decision Making, on www.legalaidboard.ie. The application for legal services form is available on our website. There's also a leaflet on applying for legal services, and the Wards of Court Office will have a leaflet on discharge from wardship and legal aid. Further information about the court process is available on www.courts.ie, and information in relation to the different decision supports are available on www.decisionsupportservice.ie. If you have any queries in relation to the application process, you can contact info@legalaidboard.ie, or you can contact our head office on 066 94 1000, or you can contact any of the nominated law centres, which are on one of the slides there previously, www.legalaidboard.ie, contact us, find a law centre. So I suppose the first step is to make the application to the board, and you will meet with a solicitor who will talk through the options with you, and then we'll take it from there. So if you have any questions for me after today, you can contact info@legalaidboard.ie, and I'll be happy to answer them for you. Or if you contact your case officer in the Wards Court Office, they can redirect you or send any question to me about the application process. So I hope that's been helpful. Thank you very much for your time.